customers are not looking for solutions. Listeners, or get your pencils out. They're not looking for solutions. They're looking for someone who understands their problem deeply. Welcome to the Sales Made Simple podcast. This podcast is dedicated to helping overwhelmed outdoor living professionals, landscapers, and hardscapers just like you increase your closing rate to over 75% without doubling your workload so you can build a seven-figure business that doesn't need you. I'm your host, Joshua Gillow. Let's dig in. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sales Made Simple podcast. This is your host, Joshua Gillow, and this week I have Frank Bork on. He's a well-known speaker, writer, consultant, and entrepreneur in our industry, and we're going to start off with our first conversation around the real reason why you're losing over 50% of your outdoor living projects to competitors and how to fix that now. So, Frank, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Joshua.
Absolutely.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're going to unpack this whole concept of how you're losing those 50% of your outdoor living project to competitors. And what you're going to learn during this episode is how to understand your customers' needs and offering tailored solutions to those needs. Why old selling styles that you might have learned from your dad or from your grandfather just aren't cutting it anymore, and they're actually killing your closing rate. And also increasing customer trust and loyalty. How do you do that through a sales process, through a conversation? So, Frank, I'm excited to bring you in here. I know you have tons of experience in this category, and I want to help our listeners unpack this, because if any of those takeaways that we're going to talk about, if anything rubs them the wrong way as they're listening, think like, wait a minute, that sounds like what I'm doing. Let's fix that now. Let's get some options on the table for them to really think about how they're doing things, question it, challenge themselves so they can get out there and do a better job. So, Frank, how you doing?
It's been a busy season, I think, for everyone, so that's good.
Yeah,
I'm glad to be here. Yeah, this is an important topic. I think we've all been in those situations where we look at our sales and we're like, there must be an easier way, or there must be something I can tweak. And that's really the goal of today. It's just to see if we can touch that chord for anyone who's listening that might be looking for something. So.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate you on here. So, first off, you're probably about the same age I'm 45. How old are you?
44.
Okay, good. So I'm the old man in the room here. That's kind of interesting. Anyway, with that being said, tell me a little bit about how sales was handled 30 years ago. Like, how is it different? I mean, everyone talks about that. They talk about, hey, you got to shift your sales process. You got to thinking about process. You can't keep doing it the way it was always done before. How was it done before? And how is it so different than what we're talking about now?
Well, my earliest memory is if I go back about 30 years, I purchased my first motorcycle, and you probably heard the adage of the old car salesman, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the best thing the best comparison I could give you to the feeling I had looking back about 30 years, where I'm purchasing my first vehicle and I'm looking to make the right decision. Obviously, at the time, doesn't matter if it's $500 or $5,000. It's a lot of money for someone who's making the first purchase. I remember going into this place where they were selling multiple different kinds of vehicles, and what I was looking for was a motorcycle. And I remember the person coming up to me and going right into, "Hey, what are you looking for?" And right from that moment on, I felt like I had to purchase something from this person because it was really very pushy. It was very, okay, you need this. This is the one vehicle that it was a motorcycle. The motorcycle that's the most in demand. That's the one that everyone's buying. That's the one. And I remember thinking, yeah, but that's not what I need. I had a paper route, so I needed something that had, the baskets or whatever to be able to carry stuff on it. Yeah. And remember getting out of there that day and not feeling good at all. I still purchased the motorcycle, but I just did not feel good about it. And from that moment on, I remember talking to my dad saying, in the next purchase, I want to feel good right from the start. And so that feeling of being pushing the product that person feels, or he feels he wants to sell that day, or he needs to sell, or he's got the best product, or he's got the, it's all about that person. It's not about the person actually buying. If it's all about the seller and not the buyer, I think we're missing the point, right? And on the other side, that said, it's helped me as a salesperson later on to want to make people feel the opposite way. It's not about me. and what I need to sell you. It's about what you need. And that's where my perception of sales really was impacted by, as a young buyer of a product, I wanted to feel that way. And so that was probably one of the biggest lessons I think I can remember going way back, right? But I remember pretty much anything you would buy, the person would tell you, we've got the best product. We are the best. This is the best thing you can buy right now. This is the hottest thing you can buy right now. And it doesn't mean that meets the client's need or whoever's buying something from you. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you nailed it for sure. And, being of the same age or very close to it, I can remember, early on as well, and listening to people trying to sell stuff, whether it's a vehicle or whatever, it might be a couch. It doesn't really matter, where you'd walk in and first thing they'd be like, hey, basically what they were saying is, hey, what can I sell you today? Not, hey, let's understand what you might need and see if what we even have will come close to that, right? That shift, right? But it was more about, I have something to sell. You're in my store. You're in my parking lot here looking at cars. I'm here to sell you something, right? And there's something clean about that when it comes to the idea that, yeah, you're in their store. They're like, of course, you come in to buy something, but there's this almost this entitlement, like, no, you're leaving with something like this. You start feeling the pressure from the salesperson, like, oh crap, I'm going to piss this person off if I don't buy right now. And that's not a comfortable place to be in as a consumer. And then when you finally leave, and next thing you know, you're like, you didn't buy anything. You're like, I'm never going back because that guy in that store sucked. Like, he made me feel like, oh, nasty, right? And I think a lot of listeners will have experiences like that out there with salespeople in general. But so how does that translate into the hardscaping, landscaping, and outdoor living world? Like, how does that same old-fashioned style of, we call it boiler room selling, right? How does that translate? How do you see it out there in the market now in our industry?
Yeah. Well, I think it applies in the sense that, we're selling services. Sometimes it's of large value, and oftentimes it's of large value, large projects. So it can range, let's say, from the $5,000 to over $100,000. But imagine someone coming in to sell, and the message is the same: very pressure based, very product centric. Like, I have the best product, I'm the best company. If you need to make a decision, you make it now. If you don't book now with us, you'll never get in for the season. It's based on pressure, and I don't think there's anyone who makes a large investment. Sometimes landscaping is other than the house, is the next largest investment they'll make. And so, and to make sure it's a good investment and to make sure it lasts a long time, they might have some questions. They might have some needs that they need to discuss to know, what, and it's all about building trust. So here's the big difference, right? It's the difference between someone who sells, and it's basically, like you mentioned the term, the boiler room tactics, right? It's high pressure, compared to a consultative, which is more based on building trust, understanding long-term needs of the client, looking at maybe creating a partnership mindset, saying, hey, we're here to work with you to create what you need for your family and your needs and how you're going to be using it, and building a custom or giving them the impression that you're building them a custom tailored product or service for them, the way they want it, and to make them feel that they can trust you in terms of the communication is good, it's open, you answer questions, you don't seem like you're hiding anything. Because when you speed up the process too much, sometimes it seems like there's missing information, and information becomes unclear, communication gets broken in different ways, updates are not provided, so the client feels that the process is going way faster than what is either expected. And it's all about also taking care of expectations, right? Managing expectations are huge. So I think that's the big difference between both. It's the taking the time to build that rapport and see if it is a good fit. Because as much as we want every client's business or potential client's business, doesn't mean it's our ideal client. And but if it's done the right way, I think both people, no matter if it becomes a client or not, both people can feel respected. Both people can feel like, yeah, I could trust that person. But even though maybe you decide not to work with the client, or the client doesn't work with the contractor because maybe it's not a good fit. At least if it's for the right reasons, everyone feels good coming out of it. And so, you know, looking at it that way, I think it's important to decide, or to take a step back and to say, you know, what approach do you or do I take when we come into our sales? You know, do we take enough time to explain the process, to make the client feel comfortable, to ask the right questions? And if you have a good process in place, then great. Everyone's going to feel like they understand the process, how it's getting done, and if it's a good fit.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't have said it better. I mean, back in the old days with that more pressure selling, it was more about being heard, right? Donald Miller wrote a book, you know, it's called Story Brand, and he talks about this idea of the hero and the guide, right? Back in the old days, and I say old days, we're only talking like a generation or two ago, when you walked into a store, you almost expected to be mauled by the salesman, right? Coming over, jumping on, what do I need? Well, how can I sell you? What like they're jumping around like crazy hyper poodles trying to sell you stuff. And they don't care what you really need. They just see what the inventory looks like and they need to sell you something, right? So with that being the case, you know, that's when they come in as the hero, trying to solve your problem, trying to not really listen much, but just get you in a car and on that couch, whatever, as quick as possible. And the entire market has become much more sophisticated with the internet and all of that, where people are coming into the sales experience with a very different idea, where they have some education. Oftentimes they have some education. They don't want to be sold. They want to be understood. Right. And they want a guide. Back to Donald Miller's work in Story Brand. It's about going from trying to be the hero in the story to being the guide. Let your customers be the hero. And the way you guide is by great questions. That's more the consultative selling side of things, where you're actually leading them with great questions, figuring out if you're even a good fit for them or not. That's really the big piece of all this, right? You can't be everything to everybody. And some clients are going to be ideal, as you mentioned. Others are going to be not ideal. And we need to be able to call them out early and pre-qualify so we can spend more time with less people and go deeper. That's the world we're in right now. That idea of going in and just telling them, and if you're listening and you're that guy or girl who just likes to kind of overtalk your clients, kind of tell them what they need, and that's worked for you in the past, I challenge you to continue to ask yourself, is it going to continue working in the future, where people are much more, your customers are much more sophisticated and they're looking to have someone come in and help solve their problems, right? That's really, they want to have people that understand their problems, because Frank, customers are not looking for solutions. Listeners, or get your pencils out. They're not looking for solutions. They're looking for someone who understands their problem deeply. That means, listeners, you need to slow the entire sales process way down and pump the brakes. Instead of going out to 10 new leads this week, go to 5. Spend twice the time with them. And you're going to see your closing rate automatically go up, because of the fact that you're spending time building rapport, going deep, asking great how and what questions. Open them up. Peel the onion, we call it, by going deeper and deeper. Pretty soon, you've built a relationship, not just a revenue stream that only lasts for one project. You build a relationship, then that relationship then builds off with referrals. So take your time. That's the world we're in now. If you're not capitalizing on that now and slowing it down, you're missing a massive opportunity.
Absolutely. And you really touched on that point, but it's a lot about the value driven conversations, right? Yeah. What value is this going to bring you? And yes, you know, there's a great opportunity to do business together, but, you know, does our work match what you need or what you want? And, that trust is essential, but it also has a bigger impact, you know, like it not only helps to close the closing rate when people feel understood and when people feel they can trust, but it helps to, with customer retention, loyalty, you get better referrals. Happy clients love to tell other people, tell their friends. And usually if you have a good client, if it's a good fit, then they love to tell their friends who are usually like them. And so if it's a good fit with them, it might be a good fit with the friends. And that's the best, the best type of marketing is having your client, happy clients, talk about that service, feeling understood, feeling like they understood the process. Absolutely.
And a certain client will want that kind of value. Some are just after the lowest bid and they just want to get the thing done, right? And they're always going to be out there, listeners. They're always going to be out there. But it's a matter of slowing it down, creating a sales process, learning a sales process that helps pre-qualify those so you can spend time with the right people, not just everybody. Because let's face it, if you're spending good time with not so good clients and you do work for them, you hate working with them because they just demand everything of you. They're ungrateful. They think their money's greener than everybody else's. They demand your time frame and schedule. They're out there yelling at you. They're never happy. Guess who their friends are? More of them, right? So when you're spending your time with them, investing in that relationship because it's a monetary driven transactional focus, then you're just seeding the clouds for more of those. And if you slow it down, the opposite is true too. If you're like, look, we're going to really be much more slow it down, and we're going to be much more particular in who we work with. And we're going to be working with clients who are more, grateful that we're there, that actually want what we have and aren't just looking for the cheapest bidder. We can spend more time with them, and guess how many friends that they have with that same kind of mentality. I mean, birds of a feather flock together. That old adage is so true. So if you find yourself constantly hitting the wall with clients who just don't appreciate you, think about, should you even be serving them in the beginning? Is your time worth going out and just chasing money for the sake of chasing money and paying bills and having to do those projects that you really don't feel good about doing? Or would it be better to slow it down, create value? With value, it's best served, demonstrated, not told. So often in the old sales process, we would go through and say, well, we have the best pavers. We work with the best subcontractors. We have the best bases. We have the best education. Our company is the best. It's like, clients don't care. All they care about is what's in it for me from the client's perspective. None of that helps them at all. When you demonstrate it, either testimonial from somebody else, or you demonstrate it by solving problems ahead of time, understanding their deep problems and offering solutions way ahead of time before you ever ask for a dollar, all of a sudden you become a valuable guide in this conversation, this experience. Now all of a sudden the other guys that are just out there chasing dollars, the transactional guys, they stand out like sore thumbs, like, oh, those guys just want money. They're the guys at the used car dealership that just scream, come buy from me. I don't care if you need an SUV or not. That's what we have for sale today, right? Those guys stand out. And you were like, wait a minute here. No, I'm the perfect sedan that you need for your family, right down to color, trim style, everything inside, because we listen and we know which car fits you best.
Yeah, you mentioned something very important, how, you can demonstrate in many ways, but it doesn't take much, even just being present on social media. The sale might be starting way earlier in building that rapport, where you're showing what you're doing, how you do business, how you do your work. People follow companies online. They go check out how they do things. If a client looks for a contractor that's very organized and works in a clean manner, and they might be, part of their expectations might be that, but you might be able to demonstrate that in many different ways in your marketing, yeah, or in your presence online. So the sales doesn't just start at the door, right?
Yeah.
It can start way earlier, and showing your process, explaining how you do things can start way earlier than that. So
100%.
There's many ways to build that trust.
Absolutely. We could do a podcast just on each one of those ways. But I want to circle back to another thing you mentioned about trust, right? Trust is so important. Setting expectations, delivering on them. That is a core to any good relationship, regardless if it's a business transaction or transformation, or whether it's just, one-on-one, two humans making a connection. How can we better how are we showing trust now in the industry, and how could we make it better? How could we show even more trust, build more trust with customers out there now? Maybe a listener's thinking like, I think I do build trust with customers, but maybe Frank's got a trick or something that I don't know of, that I'm not watching, that I'm not aware of, that I could help build better trust with my customers.
Yeah, I think trust, first of all, gets built by understanding that people have expectations. And so if we book, it starts with the appointment. If we say we're going to show up on time, we show up on time. That's the first step to the trust. And then, asking the client about their needs and explaining the process, but doing more listening than talking. That also builds trust, because it says, I'm really interested in what you have to say, mm-hmm, and to be genuine about it, to wait for that moment where the client almost, the client's done saying what they have to say. It's not like you're cutting in to finish the sentence because you know better. But essentially, you might not be trying to do that, but the client is paying attention to all these things. And I always mention to my sales team when I was operating a larger company where, I was telling the salespeople, be relatable, but also try to be, so you have to match the energy of the client, right? It's almost like trying to understand what they need, what they want. If you come in, you're very excited about a project. That's great. That's great to bring that energy, but make sure you don't miss the point of listening to the key points of what they have. Do they have kids? How do they use their yard? That's going to be important, because when you're able to reiterate and name all these things, say, oh, if I understand correctly, you do this, you have this, and taking good notes, right? I remember that just details like remembering their names, remembering even, I would tell my salespeople, remember the dog's name if you hear the dog's name, if you remember the kid's name. And then, if you mention that during the conversation, it makes the client feel very special if all of a sudden you've taken the time to notice these little things that have nothing to do with the sale, but still it was important to you. So that shows that you're genuinely interested in them. Yeah. And so, there's a lot said without saying anything. And I think that's the key to the first rapport building or trust part of the relationship. And then you have to maintain that trust. If you say you're going to call, you got to call. If you say it's going to take 2 days, like I've caught myself doing it. You want to provide some great service, so that you get excited. You say, hey, I'll get back to you in 2 days, and it takes 5. So instead of over promising and under delivering, under promise and over deliver is always better. So that's another key to maintaining that trust along the process, providing some updates, connecting with the client to see, even if everything is going well, or even if you hear something's not going well, even more important, check in with the client. Sometimes we don't, because we're scared. We just want to complete the job, get paid, and get out. But essentially, that's why we end up with a lot of issues at the end if we don't take care of it. It's addressing these things as they present themselves, not to procrastinate on issues, procrastinate on the issues, and to address them as they come up, and to face it very professionally makes the client feel like they can trust you. They know it's not going to be perfect along the way, and you can even voice that along the way. Hey, we want to make sure the process is as easy as possible. It's a complex process. Sometimes there's many details to be discussed. If I'm not meeting your expectations, I would love to hear about it. Yep. Just to feel the client feel they can address that with you. And I think that's essential. Trust is about all these things. I've probably missed a few, but it's a continuous process for sure.
You're absolutely right with that. And that's the foundation to any good relationship, specifically when you're going to be exchanging, 6+ figures, on these projects. It's, think about the kind of trust that they must have in order to hand a check over for 20, 40, 50, 100, $150,000 to somebody they just met, right? This takes time. If you're selling $100 widgets, there's not as much trust that needs to be built. But when it comes to these large projects, there's a lot that can go wrong, and they have to trust the person that they're connecting with, right? That's an important piece. Now, you mentioned earlier about, building that trust and making sure that they feel comfortable telling you if something's not going right. So something that we like to say to our customers is we look them square in the eye and say, look, Mrs. Jones, will you promise me during this project, if something comes up that you just aren't thrilled with, or doesn't make sense, or that you don't like, that we will be the first people that you call?
That's good.
Right?
I love that.
And they're like, yeah, absolutely. Because what that does, Frank, that's not just like, hey, that's some hyperbole. Like, this is an opportunity to say, I've opened the barriers now. You don't have to worry about calling me. I'm not going to be offended. I'm not going to be upset. I'm not going to yell at you. I want your feedback. Please give me your feedback. It allows them to rest more assured throughout the entire process that they can reach out if they want to. Hey, this isn't working right. But listeners, don't get pissed when they do reach out, right? Don't get mad and they're like, hey, you know what? This guy just backed over my my brand new bush out in the middle of the yard. I'm really pissed about this. My grandmother gave me that thing and she's no longer with us. So what are we going to do about it? Like, you don't get all pissed about it. Like, okay, got it. Thank you for calling me. Right? First, acknowledge. Thank you for calling me for this. Absolutely. Can you send me some pictures? I'll have a guy come out, whatever it might be. Make it a priority at that point. Don't be like, crazy customer, it's a bush. What does it matter? Like, if you're going to promise that to somebody, make sure you follow through. Again, trust again, right? Because ultimately our goal isn't this project. It's all the projects that come from all their friends. And we can't do that if we don't build trust in this relationship. We'll never build relationships with other people. They'll never let us in their inner circle if they don't trust us.
And there's usually always one test during the job, no matter which job it is. If you tell the client, you can call me, and they do it. Just like you said, it's the perfect time to prove to them that you're trustable and that what you were saying is exactly, in line with your values for the company and yourself, and how much you value the client. And I think if we see it that way, we don't get upset as much, because it's not about just us and how good company is. It's about the clients, making them feel understood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bottom line.
So much of this relationship isn't about what you tell your client. I told them they could pick any paver out of the Techo book. I told them we couldn't get there till next month. I told them. Customers don't want that. If you truly want to make a connection to a customer, they have to feel something, and you don't want them to feel shitty, right? You want them to feel something amazing, like, wow, these people are different. This team is different. They say something and they do it. They're not trying to get them excited and set up expectations that are way over something they could ever deliver. No. They're actually very conservative with these expectations, and they're delivering on or above them. Whoa, wait a minute here. That shifts it, because every other contractor, air quotes here, contractor always says stuff and doesn't do it. 2 weeks, right? I'll have it to you tomorrow. And that never happens. They're like, yeah, sure. Okay. The standard, Frank, in our industry is so low with customer expectations that all you have to do is follow through on your word, and you automatically are at a higher level in their minds than somebody or the other guys that are bidding. So we always assume there's 3 people looking at a project, right? All you got to do is do what you say you're going to do. And you automatically are raised up a level for them. And that's it. You don't need a fancy car, fancy trucks, fancy shirts. You just got to do what you say you're going to do. It's the human connection, that relationship, and slow things down. That automatically changes the game for you.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
So good. All right, Frank, I appreciated our conversation today. And listeners, I hope you picked up here on understanding what clients needs and offering them custom tailored solutions based on what they need, not what you're going to tell them they need. But by asking great questions, you're going to open them up and figure out what's truly driving them to do this project. Because newsflash, guys, it's not because they want more concrete block in their backyard or more pavers. That's not what it is. It's something else they're after. We need to get to that. And we do that by asking questions, not telling them what we could sell them. Next is why the old selling styles are killing your closing rate. I hope that's very clear now, because if you're going in being the hero of the journey, telling them what they need, you're the expert, here's my book, here's my portfolio, kiss the ring, right? And then we can finally work together. If that's you're losing a lot of opportunities with customers, because customers today, they want people to listen. Like I mentioned earlier, they're not looking for solutions. They're looking for someone who understands their problems deeply. And that's your higher value. And that's how you're demonstrating your value. People ask me all the time, how do you demonstrate value so I don't have to worry about constantly being in a battle back and forth in budget? You need to demonstrate it by being the one who cares the most. That's really the bottom line in the whole thing. One who listens and cares the most is the one most of the time that'll win. Again, you will find some people that it's only the bottom line. You're going to have some of those. That's just going to be what it is. But if a good pre-screening process, you'll kick most of those out early. And then last is increasing that customer loyalty and trust, and increasing your closing rate by slowing things down and doing the stuff that Frank and I were talking about earlier when it comes to building that trust. Just be a man or woman of your word. Show up when you say you're going to. Do what you say you're going to. It's so simple to build that stuff. But oftentimes I hear from our industry, you know what? I don't have time for that. I don't have time for sitting around and having tea with Mrs. Jones and talking about her cat. Like, I don't have any time for that. I got 10 projects to go on this week. Well, imagine, listeners, if you could pick the 5 that are going to be highest probability of not being a waste of your time and being great customers that not only will buy once from you, but that have friends that'll buy from you as well. Imagine if you slowed things down, had a process to screen them out, how that could change the way you do business. So Frank, I appreciate you coming on. And listeners, next week, we're jumping into how to double your outdoor living sales in half the time with these 3 sales shortcuts. So you're not going to want to miss that. Frank, see you next week.